Religion. What is the first thing you think of when you hear this word? Maybe it's your own religion or you're actually atheist at all. But have you ever wondered what would happen if a religion suddenly got banned in your country or in any particular region? In the history, such incidents have actually taken place in many countries all over the world. Very religious people were forced to abandon their religion and become atheists. And the interesting thing about this is that not a single action in fixing this issue was taken by any international human rights organization at the time this was happening. This is why my team and I decided that we want to know the effects of taking the liberty from the people to decide what to believe in, so we chose the research question: what are the effects of suppressing religion and spreading propaganda among citizens? Moreover, in order for us to research this question, we chose the topic tradition, culture, and identity.
We believe that every single person should formulate their opinions not based on what the government is promoting, but rely on their own beliefs instead. Did you know that 26% of the world's countries have restrictions on religion? According to the article written by PewResearch.org in 2017, 52 countries have religion suppression. And even though these statistics were made in 2017, it doesn't mean that the number has decreased exponentially. Burma, also called Myanmar, is a small country in Southeast Asia that has a history of suppressing religion. For example, Burma's government promotes Theravada Buddhism over Islam, Christianity, and Hinduism. About 90% of Burma's population is Theravada Buddhist, while the other 10% of the population are victims to religious restrictions. Most notably, those in danger are Rohingya Muslims, of which 240 were murdered last year in religious clashes. Furthermore, the Burmese government refuses to grant citizenship to 800,000 Rohingya Muslims because of their religion. This is just one of the numerous examples out there. Another one would be Cambodia.
Cambodia is a country located in the southern part of the Indo-Chinese Peninsula. For at least 600 years, monks of the Theravada Buddhists had lived there. Between 1975 and 1979, this country was under the regime named Khmer Rouge, led by Saloth Sar, better known as Pol Pot. Under the regime, all religious practices were forbidden because Pol Pot wanted the country to be a communist-style agricultural utopia, but communism and religion cannot work together. Monks from the Wat Bo, which is one of the oldest temples of Cambodia, lived in fear because Pol Pot executed people that followed any religion and people that were smart and wise. Many books from this temple were burned, and the temple itself was destroyed. During this 4-year regime, 2 million people died, of whom 25,000 were Buddhist monks and 1,968 temples and monasteries were destroyed. After the Khmer Rouge ended, the pro-Vietnamese that ruled Cambodia after 1980 encouraged Buddhism again, but in a limited way. In 1993, Buddhism Theravada was restored as a religion, and nowadays 95% of Cambodia's population is Buddhist.
China is a superpower with a history of suppressing religion and other ethnicities. During the 1950s, Mao Zedong led the Cultural Revolution supposed to destroy tradition from China's past. This included religion. Religion was brutally suppressed and all religious practices were forbidden. Despite China's policies on religion, in the 1970s they relaxed some of the laws related to religion. Since then, 5 religions have been protected by the Chinese constitution. These included Buddhism, Catholicism, Taoism, Islam, and Protestantism. Despite China's constitution, some Islamists still find themselves persecuted and subject to religious suppression. The Uyghur crisis is happening in Xinjiang province, and it started in the 1950s as an attempt to get independence from China, but it ended in brutal suppression, and in 2017, China started harassing the Uyghurs once again. For instance, many Uyghur Muslims find themselves in concentration camps dubbed as re-education camps. Although China claims that the Uyghur Muslims are being treated fairly, other sources beg to differ. For example, DW News claims that China attempts to destroy Uyghur culture and Muslim religion by desecrating cultural monuments and destroying mosques. Xinjiang is famous for producing more than 20% of the world's cotton, by exploiting the Uyghur Muslims from the concentration camps, where the main job of the detained is collecting cotton. Nowadays, China is being accused of numerous human rights violations against the Uyghurs by Europe and America. They also imposed several sanctions against China regarding traveling and asset freezing in the region where this is happening. Despite this, the newly created hashtag #ILoveXinjiangCotton has hit 1.8 billion views and is trending on Weibo, which is a popular Chinese social media. Furthermore, the Chinese government is attempting to suppress any kind of accusations regarding the Uyghur crisis. For example, Nike, H&M, Adidas, and other companies who had previously supported the Uyghurs are now being cancelled by the Chinese government. Thus, several actions have been taken in order to boycott the companies. In an attempt to strengthen relations with China, Apple removed H&M stores from their Maps application, and other Chinese GPS platforms did the same thing. Besides that, the most successful Chinese telecommunications company, Huawei, removed Nike and Adidas applications from their App Store. Also, many Chinese celebrities are cutting ties with many Western brands to support their country's interest. For example, the past Secretary for Security, Regina Ip, tweeted that she will stop buying Burberry clothes until they apologize for the accusations against Xinjiang. Moreover, sources report sightings of Chinese citizens burning their Nike shoes and girls dancing outside some closed H&M stores dressed in Uyghur traditional clothing in order to show the transnational companies who's the boss. The most horrifying thing about this is that the Chinese government was able to provoke 6 owners of H&M stores into closing them, and in general succeed in cancelling several transnational companies by a finger snap, because of not accepting the allegations related to the Uyghur Muslims. Moreover, China deems some religious groups astray and they are subject to frequent government crackdowns. The Chinese government says that the leaders of these religious groups are controlling their members and that they are endangering society. Other times, the Chinese government is less subtle about their methods of suppressing these religious groups. For instance, in 1999 the government launched a crackdown against a large peaceful crowd of protesters right outside the CCP headquarters, where the protesters were advocating for greater religious freedom. Furthermore, according to an article published in 2019 by Forbes, China is forcing Muslims to drink alcohol and eat pork, whereas Christians aren't allowed to sell Bibles online, and there have even been reports of Christian worshippers and priests being arrested. Also, it is said that the Chinese algorithms have begun removing the words Christ and Jesus from Christian publications, and these words are instead written as letters such as JD and YS. In conclusion, despite China claiming that they allow freedom of religion, they instead suppress and crack down on many religious groups.
Another country that suppressed religion was the Soviet Union. Even though it was made of 15 republics, it was considered a country at the time of its existence. During the 20th century, communism arose in Russia and Vladimir Lenin transformed the Russian nation into the Soviet Union. Quickly after its establishment, the Soviet Union started spreading propaganda about how great communism was and also the idea of materialism. But why was religion so brutally suppressed? When Lenin came to power, he knew that religion would be his biggest enemy, because religion and communism are natural enemies, and because of materialism. The idea of materialism is the idea of believing in only the things you can see and touch, which is the direct opposite of spiritualism, where you believe in departed souls, and is an idea Christianity follows. As the Orthodox Church and the Communist Party had conflicting views, in 1928 the Communist Party launched an anti-religious campaign against the Orthodox Church, as it was the biggest religious organization in Russia. Moreover, according to Karl Marx, religion was just a tool used by the nobility to keep peasants in line and keep their status unequal. Therefore, it couldn't coexist with a communist state where everyone was to be equal. But how did the communists convince so many Orthodox Russian people that religion is just a tool of the nobility? By spreading lies and anti-religious propaganda such as calling religion a type of poison and other caricatures. Furthermore, they controlled the schools and taught children to not believe in God and not to pray and so on. Also, they taught children to think of Lenin as a man that was above others and a genius. The Communist Party created a sort of Leninist cult, but despite enforcing so many anti-religious laws and policies, many people still believed in God and practiced their religious traditions in their private life. To support my claims about children being taught that they should not be religious, I interviewed my mother who grew up in the Soviet Union.
Am crescut în Uniunea Sovietică și ceea ce pot să vă spun este că la acel moment religia nu era permisă. Majoritatea bisericilor erau închise. Îmi amintesc că mama mea, la anumite date, mă ducea la biserică din satul vecin și mi era foarte rușine să intru știind că școala ne interzicea să mergem.
To further cement our opinion, I have also interviewed my mother.
Когда была я маленькой, я помню, что бабушки и дедушки брали меня с собой в церковь. Но когда я пошла в первый класс, в школе мне сказали, что Бога нет. И в школе, в первом классе, мы должны были стать октябрятами. Октябрята не верили в существование Бога. И я пыталась убедить своих бабушек и дедушек, что Бога нет. И приводила им очень много причин, почему его нет. Мы же его не видим. И если мы не видим Бога, соответственно, его и нет.
Shortly after the Soviet Union ended, many post-Soviet countries allowed freedom of religion. Nowadays, 13 out of the 15 post-Soviet countries allow freedom of religion, and almost all of them are very religious. One that is specifically religious is Russia. It has many laws regarding insulting the feelings of believers, and the country's president, Vladimir Putin, is baptizing in ice water every year, which is a Christian religious tradition. In conclusion, this only shows how strong the religious beliefs are, because after religion was banned for so many years, people still stayed at their thoughts, and after all turned out to be religious in the end.
On October 26, 1926, Kim Il-sung, who later became the first leader of North Korea, created the Down with Imperialism Union, which was supposed to fight with imperialism in Korea and promote Marxism-Leninism, later to be known as Communism. 19 years later, in 1945, North Korea became involved with the Soviet Union and the North Korean Bureau of the Communist Party of Korea was created. And by the way, the same party rules in North Korea until today. To begin, communism presumes atheism. As one of its creators, Vladimir Lenin, stated, atheism is a natural and inseparable part of Marxism, of a theory and practice of scientific socialism. That's what he wrote in his book called Religion, published in 1905. After the Korean War that ended in 1953, North Korea was created as an official, separate communist country. It was obvious that the North Korean government would ban religion, and it was just a matter of time. But they've done something much worse. By their actions of suppressing religion and making people think that the only thing they should believe in is the government, they created a new religion and a supreme leader, or rather a new god, in the face of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and later his son Kim Jong-un, who is the current supreme leader of the country. A similar type of propaganda was being spread in the Soviet Union, but not on such a scale. Children were taught that they should believe in Lenin, but not in God, by that making him a kind of a god himself. But in North Korea, people don't have a choice, because they are obliged to believe in the supreme leader. Otherwise, they'd be sent to concentration camps or killed. Besides that, people there don't know anything about the rest of the world, and they probably never heard of God, because the country has been completely isolated from the world since 1953. In an article written by BBC in 2011, I found proof of that. A journalist named Sue Lloyd Roberts managed to interview a couple of students and guides from North Korea. The journalist asked a student who spoke good English how he managed to learn it, to which he replied, "Thanks to the great leader, we are allowed to watch English and American films like The Sound of Music." A movie that is over 50 years old and those people are fine with that, because they think that it's normal. Mrs. Roberts also noticed that the North Korean television only broadcasts hagiographies of the two leaders and pictures celebrating the country's army, model farms, and model villages. Moreover, the journalist wrote that no one has access to the internet in North Korea. Instead, the North Koreans have a special internal intranet, which I was shown at the Pyongyang University. By these examples, we can clearly see that North Korea really is isolated from society. Also in this article, there is proof that Kim Il-sung, who was the first leader of North Korea, is like a god to the North Korean people. Mrs. Roberts also mentioned Kim Il-sung died 16 years ago, but he's still the country's president, and there are more than 500 statues of him. She also interviewed a 24-year-old guide who explained, "He's immortal, we don't believe he passed away." Just for you to understand how much dedication for the supreme leaders there is, two flowers are named after the supreme leaders, Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung. Another journalist named Michael Bristow wanted to take a picture of his guide in front of the portrait of the supreme leaders, when his guide warned him that whenever taking pictures, he should include the whole body into the frame. He commented, "She warned me that when taking a photograph, I must be careful and include the man's whole bodies in the frame." The guide explained this by saying, "They are our leaders, and we respect them from the bottom of our hearts. We don't allow other people to cut the pictures of them," she said a little angrily. I found even more evidence to support my claim that Kim Il-sung is the North Korean god in an article written by The Guardian in 2014. A native North Korean named Ji Min Kang was interviewed by Michael S., who asked him about religion in North Korea, to which he replied, "In a way, North Korea became one big religious nation, but it also became a grave full of lies. That's because North Korean propaganda is like its own religion. The propaganda suggests that immortality is possible through its endorsement of Kim Il-sung's ideology. The propaganda says that while your body will perish after death, the political life is immortal. Such beliefs made Kim Il-sung the only god in North Korea, and a belief system that would sometimes demand people's lives." To conclude, in an article written in 2020 by Asia News, I found out that the database Center for North Korea Human Rights has published a white paper on religious freedom in North Korea every year since 2007 by adding all of the information available, especially from people who managed to escape. In 2020, the center was able to gather information from 1,234 people who confirmed the ban on all religious practices and the harsh persecution of believers. Approximately 46% of the respondents confirmed that people involved in religious practices are sent to forced labor camps. Around 38.6% said they didn't know about the punishments because they knew nothing about religion. According to the center, religious persecution started increasing in April of 2014 when Kim Jong-un issued an order to arrest people who had contacts with Christianity. Ever since, the security forces have been actively searching for religious believers, while the North Korean embassy in Beijing has also been on the lookout for Christians among North Korean fugitives in China. The center also reported that even though there has been an increase in persecution of religion, the number of North Korean citizens who have seen a Bible has increased by 4% each year since year 2000. Before the year 2000, only 16 people said they had seen a Bible. But after 2000, up to 559 citizens said they had the experience of seeing the Bible.
As Moldova was part of the USSR, the anti-religious policies enacted by the Communist Party left a mark on the Moldovan people. Moldova had a history of being largely Orthodox, and all other religions were just small communities. This meant that the Orthodox churches were the main target of the Soviet Union. This was morally damaging to the older Moldovan population, as most, if not all Moldovan values, were built on Orthodox Christianity, and Moldovan culture couldn't coexist without it. Furthermore, many Christians were forbidden to practice their religion and were told that God doesn't exist. The Communist Party was extremely active in the suppression of religion, and many schools in Moldova taught children to not believe in God. This, of course, left an impact on the children and changed their lives for years to come. find out more about the topic, I interviewed my parents who have lived during the Soviet Union's reign.
Ca un copil născut în vremea sovietică, pe vremea guvernării Partidului Comunist, sigur că opinia noastră despre religie era dictată de politica partidului. Adică Partidul Comunist insista pe doctrina lui, pe ideologia lui, că toți oamenii trebuie să fie ateiști și religia asta este numai o dogmă, religia este numai un instrument de control a maselor. Se nega absolut existența lui Dumnezeu și desigur că noi, născându-ne cu asta ideologie, noi cu asta și creșteam. Pentru noi era clar că anume asta este pur adevărul. Toate că eu m-am născut într-o familie de oameni religioși, părinții mei erau absolut religioși, ei duceau alt idei și era firesc ca noi să ținem cont de ce îi spun ei, dar cu tot mai mult politica partidului prevala. Și noi, fiind copii, noi mult mai mult credeam în ce ne spune la școală decât în ce își spuneau părinții. Religia noi de la părinți o primeam ca o tradiție, ca un obicei, ca niște tradiții vechi, да.
Школа имела очень большое влияние на формирование моего мнения по поводу религии. Все предметы, которые изучались в школе, были построены по принципу идеологии марксизма-ленинизма, что исключало априори идею существования Бога. Разговоры на тему религии, они были предметом осмеяния. И считались, что человек принадлежит к эпохе Средневековья, если он вообще допускал существование невидимого мира или существование души.
Despite the Soviet Union's propaganda and its attempts to eradicate religion in Moldova, nowadays the country allows freedom of the press and freedom of religion. I believe freedom of religion and freedom of expression should be allowed. Furthermore, I believe anyone should be allowed to practice their tradition and faith.
Personally, I think that's a significant problem, because in the 21st century not allowing people to choose what to believe in is not okay. Also, witnessing different perspectives of many people from different countries was really fascinating, because I could see the difference in their thinking.
I believe that people should be allowed to practice their religions because, in my opinion, everyone has the right to do so, since it doesn't harm or affect anyone. The UN should set up a subdivision dedicated to the protection of religious freedom. It should also focus on stopping the spreading of propaganda in countries that have this problem.
For the example I have mentioned, which is North Korea, we suggest creating an immigration program for people who dream of leaving North Korea due to religious persecution. Of course, this might sound unrealistic, but they should at least start from something.
Moreover, the UN should study the Uyghur issue in more depth, so they could figure out possible solutions and come to an agreement with the Chinese government.
After our research and the final outcome in the face of a video was finished, we realized that even though incidents in Cambodia, Moldova and Soviet Union have been dealt with, and right now most of these countries are religious, there are examples like China and North Korea that have this problem nowadays.
For each one of us, realizing the fact that in the 21st century some people in certain parts of the world are not allowed to believe in what they want was really hard. After analyzing all of the information, it seemed to us that the rest of the world, like Europe and America, live in another universe because we don't have these issues here.
This STEAM project also taught us that we should be thankful for what we have, because at least we have the right to choose what to believe in. Moreover, there are many countries that have the issue of religious restrictions, but we couldn't research all of them because the video would have gotten many hours long.
In conclusion, I would like to say that the right to believe in a religion is something that shouldn't be taken away from people, as it is immoral and inhumane.